What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins in That podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That is David Neal. Thanks so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. Now, since we last recorded this podcast, the Dolphins ended their search for a new defensive coordinator to replace Vic Fangio. They settled, or I won't say settled on, but chose Ravens, former Ravens assistant Anthony Weaver. He spent the past 3 years as an assistant head coach and defensive line coach. We all know how good the Baltimore Ravens defense was this past season. Weaver becomes the third defensive coordinator for Miami in as many seasons, and second that Mike McDaniel was chosen since he arrived as head coach. He actually has a relationship with Mike McDaniel dating back to the time in Cleveland. Weaver was the defensive line coach. McDaniel was the wide receivers coach. So there's a little bit of history there. It was like picked a familiar face there. Weaver did have one stint as defensive coordinator in 2020. Didn't go so well with the Houston Texans. That unit, which outside of J.J. Watt, didn't have a lot of talent. Allowed or ranked 27th in points allowed. So not great there, but. He's on the fast track to becoming a head coach. He actually interviewed for a pair of jobs this cycle, didn't get them, but he comes highly recommended. A leader of men is what McDaniel spoke about in the press release, and he's gonna get to work with a defense that looked pretty good this past season, but obviously personality wise, things didn't work out with Vic Fangio. It seemed like this was as much of a kind of a culture hire as maybe an X's and O's hires. We still don't really know what type of defense he's gonna run because that stint in Houston was kind of so long ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Didn't have a lot of talent. He's gonna have a lot more to work with here. David, just want to kind of get your thoughts on this hiring. They interviewed a lot of people. They had some familiar names, they had some, veteran names, some upstarts, but they settled on somebody who I think that most Dolphins fans were happy about the hire, but we still don't know everything about what he's gonna bring. So I'm really interested in what he says in the press conference, whenever that is. But your thoughts?
Oh, well, I think you hit it on the head. As soon as I heard it, I was like, okay, yeah, we're trying to fit more personalities here, and kind of vibe than we are saying, okay, this is, let's do the X's and O's thing. Um, and interestingly, he went with somebody that he knows because why wouldn't he? And also, there was always the sense for some people that that Miami was a not exactly the stop that Fangio wanted in the first place,
Yeah, but he's out
and
in
that
Philly, which is where we all think that he kind of wanted to be from the jump now.
right, exactly. So then when things open up, boom, he skips out, and it's a whole lot easier because where did the some of the stuff about the work ethic come from? It came from Ron Jaworski, who's still a very prominent figure there in Philadelphia. For those of you youngsters, Jaws was the quarterback of the Eagles way long ago, when I was but a teen, and when they went to the Super Bowl back in 1980, the 1980 season. Uh, so you can kind of see that
Put the connection
that
there.
feed
Yeah.
coming. So this, like I said, this just feels like more like, okay, let me get somebody younger, somebody, Mike Davis said, let me get somebody I know that can vibe with the players the way I'm trying to vibe with the players, and that vibes with him. And you have good personnel uh, on that defense. How much of it you can keep, that's another story. But you have good personnel, and as long as you're not putting guys just in just flat wrong positions or asking them to do things that they're just not to their strengths, you're probably going to have a pretty good defense. So, um, yeah, that's how I felt. And I was like, okay, let's. And hey, this also might be right stopover, because the coaches, there's going to be spots open next year, and if the Dolphins have uh, a good year defensively.
He's going to be up for
You
those
know,
jobs again, and maybe even more
he's
than
going to
that.
be
You
a
know?
right. And so yeah, this is this is kind of, it's like, okay, this figures, this fits, or this seems to fit. So let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, yeah. Personality wise, I think it is. Like, I mean, if you, so I overlapped when I was covering the Ravens. I overlapped with Anthony Weaver for probably like 4 months. I think I had one news conference with him, or one little media availability with him. And you quickly, like, just like he can grab a room, like the way he speaks. Kind of the confidence and the way he kind of composes himself. Like you can feel that confidence in the room. And I remember like afterward, one of the veteran reporters like kind of looked at him. He was like, "This guy's impressive." Like, he's a guy that's been around the team for several years, and he's like, "Nah, this guy's impressive." It was actually funny. I was coming back from the Senior Bowl. And this was probably, I think this was Thursday. So this was, a couple of days before they had hired Anthony Weaver. And in Baltimore, they had to replace Mike McDonald, who left to be the Seahawks head coach. So they quickly, promoted their inside linebackers coach. And I know that there was a lot of people, I think there was a lot of excitement, more or less excitement from, the Dolphins fan base. But there were some people that were kind of saying like, wait, if this guy is so great, why did he not only not get any head coaching jobs, he didn't get his own, he didn't get the defensive coordinator job within his own organization. And I will say, from talking to a source, in the organization, come back from the Senior Bowl, there was that fear that, Zach Orr, who was promoted to defensive coordinator, was going to leave and join Mike McDonald's staff. And just kind of knowing, the layout of what was going on, like Harbaugh, even, on Friday, the day before they hired Weaver, he said like, oh, he's still in the running. So there was kind of that understanding that there was a good chance that he was going to leave and go to Miami. So they didn't want to lose two guys. And I think also, Zach Orr is a little bit younger. He's 31 years old, whereas Weaver is 44. I think that the thinking there is that they might be able to keep, Orr for a couple of years, whereas Weaver, yeah, you promote him next year, he's gone. Obviously that might be the case for the Dolphins as well, but that was
Right.
obviously their choice there. Yeah, I mean, but so that was just kind of like, just want to kind of give that background. But he was very excited about the prospects of him going to Miami too. But I think that there is a lot of mystery. Like I think that I don't think this is as much of a slam dunk, or at least the perception of it immediately isn't, or maybe shouldn't be as much of a slam dunk as Vic Fangio, because with Fangio, you had like a proven track record. You had a well-defined system that we knew he was going to bring, and you could kind of like fill in the blanks and be like, all right, this is where this guy fits, this is where this guy fits. Again, you can't really take too much about Weaver, take too much from Weaver's time in Houston, because there's a little bit of it was Houston, back before they got some structure. And I think that was the last year of Bill O'Brien, or he was maybe fired mid-season there. So I don't know if he was really running the same exact defense that he would have ran now. Romeo Crennel was still there. And we just don't know. Like Weaver's actually, and I wrote about this on the Miami Herald website. I think one of maybe the best traits, or one of his gifts in Miami, will be that maybe he's not like wed or bound to one style. Like he played under Rex Ryan, who was like very blitz happy. Bring the house, bring all these exotic pressures. And then but this past season with Mike McDonald, it wasn't like the normal style of Ravens defense that we've seen in terms of like blitzing a lot. He did a lot of zone and kind of more intricate stuff there. So I mean, I think that could be like the blessing of his arrival, but we just don't know yet. We can kind of
Right.
infer, but we just don't know yet. But obviously, I think that if you look at in terms of being able, so again, like we talked about it when Fangio, when they parted ways with Fangio, I was told that didn't get along with a lot of guys. There wasn't that connection there. There's a little bit too much rigidity in terms of scheme, and building a scheme and marrying it with the talents of your players. So if anything, I would hope that if Weaver doesn't do anything, he does that. Whatever he brings, he can
Yeah.
marry it with the skill sets of his players. And I think that if he does that, it could be a very good defense.
Well, I think that's what a good coach does. That's what a good coach who can be good in a lot of situations does. Is you look at what you have and you say, okay, what can we do that fits the talents of the people that I have to work with? You don't spend a lot of time trying to pound square pegs into round holes. You say, okay, I got square pegs. Well, let me find my square. make my whole square so I can get him in there. And I think, when you said he's not married to a system, great, because that also means there's not a huge book on him throughout the NFL. Which can give you an actual little bit of an edge, or at least early in the season, because you got the whoever the Zach Thomases and Peyton Mannings are running around now, the guys who were like, oh yeah, they ran that, but back in 2020 they ran that, but they did it with this. The guys who can do that, they don't have that book on him.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody say devoted any Texans energy to the Texans back then. Devote the brain cell space. So that's what you want, I think, as a coach anyway, and that's what you want as a head coach. I think that's what you want with your coordinators. And so, yeah, again, let's see how this plays out. And I've gotten off the why didn't he get the DC job, or why didn't he get the next job up? Sometimes it's just not a fit with what everybody's doing, and sometimes it's not a fit with the head coach. And so, so we'll see how this works out.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, just kind of as a closing point, as much as there's a little mystery in terms of schematically what he's gonna bring. I mean, there's a little bit of uncertainty with personnel. We talked about some of the big free agents that are set to hit the market for the Dolphins. I think the top priority for the Dolphins this offseason is probably going to be Christian Wilkins. In the middle of the defense, a defensive tackle. I mean, that's a guy that I'm sure Weaver would love to have. With Justin Madubuike in Baltimore, he was a breakout star this year, so you'd love the kind of prospects of what they can do together. Andrew Van Ginkel, Deshaun Elliott, and then you have two guys in outside linebackers, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, who are coming back from injury. So as much as they're going to need to work on kind of hone in the schematics and whatnot, they're going to make sure they kind of got the horses to run this scheme as well. So we'll see. Again, no press conference date has been announced yet, but obviously when they do introduce Weaver, we'll be there to cover it and break down his first days in Miami. We're going to take a short break, but we come back on the other side of things. Tua was up in Orlando for the Pro Bowl last week, and he had some interesting comments about his contract situation. We're going to discuss that, as well as give our Super Bowl predictions. 49ers, Chiefs, this weekend, this Sunday in Vegas. Who we take, and we're going to discuss that and more. So stay locked with us, and we'll be back soon. What's going on, everybody? Still here on the Dolphins In Depth podcast with David Neal, talking all things Dolphins. Now, in the first half, we broke down the recent news of the Dolphins hiring Anthony Weaver as the new defensive coordinator. I want to switch gears a little bit because the Dolphins were very well represented up in Orlando this past week for the Pro Bowl. We had Tua, Tyreek, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Ramsey, Alec Ingold, Tron Armstead. We even had wide receivers coach Wes Welker, who was the offensive coordinator for the AFC team. I don't know what play calls he was calling, but he was the coordinator. I think Peyton Manning said they were trying to get the Mike McDaniel offense up there. So the Dolphins were very well represented before the game on Sunday, the flag football game on Sunday. Tua Tagovailoa, as well as other Dolphins, spoke to reporters, and it was actually the first time we had spoken to, or reporters had spoken to since Chris Greer's comments at the end of season news conference that he said the goal is to have Tua here long term. Tua was asked about whether his confidence that a deal would be reached this offseason, and he said, quote, "I believe that will happen." He said, "I'm going to let my agents, Chris, Mike, let those guys talk about that and let them move forward accordingly." Now, nothing too groundbreaking, earth-shattering, but I think it was pretty notable that Tua did said, yes, I believe a long-term deal will be reached this offseason. He's been eligible for a deal for a year now. Obviously, remember last year coming off the concussions, they decided to shelf negotiations. It looks like they're gonna, meet at some point and start to really try to hammer out a deal. Just curious, after these comments and just kind of knowing where the Dolphins are, Chris Greer's comments, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that a deal is reached before the start of the 2024 season? And I guess what is the biggest impediment to a deal, you would say, when it comes to it? Like, what is the thing that could really not allow them to reach the finish line when it comes to this?
I mean, how much money one side wants versus how much money one side is willing to give. That's pretty much what it always comes down to when you break it down. Um, everything else can you can agree on everything else. It's about making the money work. And
There's some nuances to it. I mean, I think that a normal top of the market quarterback, they're the ones that we've seen, the past year, 2, 3. Obviously they've been, $50 million, a certain amount of money guaranteed. But there's the length, there's maybe some added, protections and stuff. I think this could be a very nuanced negotiation. But go ahead.
Yeah, nuance is going to come back down to money. It's going to come back down to money. Okay, you know, uh, I don't know that they're going to want to. And you're right. I mean, there's length is going to come into play. I think I think if there's going to be something done this summer, then length is definitely going to come into play because I don't know if the Dolphins. I don't know if the Dolphins want to be, absolutely married to him for as long as he would probably like, and I don't know if they. I think it's hard. It would be hard for them. It'd be really gutsy for them to do it. But I wonder if in their minds, and they're never gonna, they'll never say it on the record. And probably wouldn't even say it off the record if they're smart. How limited do they think Tua is? And how limited do they think he maybe is? And so that's going to determine how long your deal is, and that's also going to determine the money also. But time and money, you can. It's easier, I think, to work out time than money. It's easier to work out time than money.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, after those comments and just knowing all the things that you've brought out, I mean, are you less confident? Are you more confident? Are you kind of still same as before, maybe a couple of weeks?
I'll give it a 6.
A 6 that the deal is worked out.
Six that they get something done. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even so, I wanted to bring up Daniel Jones's contract because I don't think that Tua is going to get. Well, I think that Tua is probably going to ask for a lot more than Daniel Jones got. But I brought that up because I think that was I guess you could say it's a similar example of a quarterback who has some limitations, and you're still kind of maybe not sure if he's like the surefire franchise
guy, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, just to kind of put in perspective, like the types of deals that are that are out there for just like average, above average starting quarterbacks. I mean, he signed a 4-year, $160 million deal. That brought that, and the situations are a little bit different because the Dolphins had Tua's 5th year. They have Tua's 5th-year option. The Giants neglected to declined his 5th-year option, so they had to pay him to make sure he wasn't a free agent. So this is like a 4-year deal, $160 million. And I just want to break down the cap hits. Like, for one thing, 2023 was $15 million. 2024 it's going to be $47 million. 2025 it's $41 million. But it's going to even increase, I think, because some of the money guarantee converts to full guarantees, and then the final year of the contract is $58.6 million with the cap hit. The Giants, like, more like, they really can't get out the contract until after the 2025 season. Like, that's just kind of the nature of these quarterback deals. And that's 4 years, 160. That's 40 million. That's not even top of the market. If you look at the contracts that, Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow have signed, like those teams are like wedded to the quarterback for the next 3 to 4 years. And that's your point is exactly what I'm trying to highlight. Like, whatever way you slice it, because I don't think that, if Tua side, take a 3 year, like I can't see them taking a 3 year deal or whatever, because it really wouldn't be beneficial to the Dolphins, because then you're going to have these huge cap hits. You usually want to get that long-term commitment so you can spread the money out, and, the cap people can make sure that it doesn't, destroy their books. In the first or second year. But again, like if you do sign a regular top of the market deal, or even something that's, a significant increase over the 23 million he's going to make this upcoming year, like you are tied to that quarterback for the next couple of years. And like you said, that's the main question. Like how are they willing to do that right now? Is it because I feel like we talked about it before, but it's like at this point, the question is, how much better can Tua get, and is the room for improvement that you see in him enough to bring you to a Super Bowl? It's like if you believe that he's going to get better, and you believe that there is room for growth. I mean, again, he was put like, I know the last month of the season wasn't good. We had the same issues, late in the season against good teams, cold weather, but he had a really good season. Like let's put all of it to
Yeah.
the he had a really good season. Like, there's a reason why he was in the Pro Bowl. He led the NFL in passing. He was one of the leaders in pass rate. Like he had a really good season. The question is like how much better can he get? And as I said before, is that ceiling enough to bring a team to a Super Bowl? And I feel like at this point, I mean, they've had 2 years of him in Mike McDaniel's system. Nobody knows Tua as well as Mike McDaniel, Chris Greer, those execs, those coaches. So I feel like it should be pretty straightforward. Like it should either be, and maybe it's not straightforward because there's not really, if you want to find an, well, put it this way, you can't move off from him unless you find an upgrade. Like you said that before.
Exactly. Right.
So, but
Right.
but if you think that he can get better, and that he is, and really what I would love to ask, and maybe I need to do that next time we speak to Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel, is Tua's peak and ceiling championship caliber? Because if that's the case, then it shouldn't be a question. You figure out a deal, or shoot, you give him a top of the market deal, because if you think that he's that good, the returns are going to be worth it, you would think. But if not, like I don't see this thing where it's like we're going to give him like $42 million. We're going to give him a little bit above Daniel Jones, but less than, all of his peers signed. Like, nah, if you believe in him, like you got to show that commitment. I mean, the way quarterback deals are going, it's not like okay, Daniel Jones signed a $40 million deal because that's Daniel Jones. But if you believe this is the guy, like you give him a top of the market deal, and you have that faith and confidence that he's going to get better and he's going to take you to where you need to go. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Also, I mean, I think Tua is without a doubt. I mean, I'd be very surprised if he's not the quarterback in 2024. But I believe, if you believe he's the guy, you commit to him. If not, then all right. Then if you don't believe that he can take you to a Super Bowl, then maybe you play out the fifth year option, see where that takes you, and then start looking for the future. But if you believe in him, like I don't know, like I don't know about this. Like I don't really get the nickel and diming that I understand will probably take place in the negotiations. If you believe him, that he's the franchise guy, you make him, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, or right around there, 50 something million dollars, and then you keep it pushing. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
It ain't your money.
It ain't my money. It ain't my money, but I gotta talk like it's my money because comes with the job.
Let's. I think another thing you have to look at, I think they're probably looking at, is also, like we said, if okay, let's say you're not sure or you don't think he's your guy. Okay, fine. What then? What then? Where's your upgrade coming from? Is your upgrade, are you sitting there going, okay, come 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 3 years from now, let's say in the draft, or 2 years from now in the draft, is there somebody you're target, you're going to target, you're going to be willing to make that big, move up for?
I mean, really,
who do you see come, or is
I
there
mean,
somebody you see coming out in free agency that you think? Because if you don't have that, if you don't see any of those, also, then cheaper to keep her.
Yeah, I mean, I
know,
think really as I look at, the pending negotiations, like I think Tua has a lot of leverage, honestly. Like I know some people are saying Tua doesn't have leverage. I think he has a ton of leverage. Um, first of all, he's on the 5th-year option, but I mean the only other again, like the Dolphins can't move, like they just can't, like whether it's because for a lack of actual available options, but just like the optics of it, like they can't move off Tua unless they have legitimate upgrade. So if you don't pay Tua this hold up, if you don't pay Tua this year, you haven't played on the 5th-year option, and then if you want to do the franchise tag, shoot, that's gonna be like 50 something million dollars, 40 something million dollars, and then that completely destroys your cap. Like you
your
don't,
cap, right?
and then you start going maybe down the Kirk Cousins road. Like you don't want to do that. I think that I mean, in terms of like in terms of like franchise tagging a guy and then having a
Right.
big hit on your cap, like I think Tua has a lot of leverage in this situation, especially because again, like season didn't end the way people expected, but he's improved. He stayed healthy. He's for the most part checked most of like the majority of the boxes that don't know that we had and the questions that we had entering the season. So there's a lot of leverage in his spot right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're right about that. And, the lack, but to me, it's also the lack of options that gives him leverage, which you kind of just said, you can't, this is not a team where you can, say, okay, you need someone. If you're moving on from him, then you better have someone you can bring in right now to win right now. Not somebody you think you can, kind of grow into things right now. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I want to say I won't say it's a tough spot because if the Dolphins feel confident and believe in Tua, you just write the check and
right,
you feel
right.
that you have that faith that you get you're rewarded on the back end. But again, I think that it could make for some really really interesting negotiations. Obviously, like Chris Greer and those folks don't talk a lot about negotiations. Tua already said he's going to let his folks talk, but again, I think that there's a lot of bridges that need to be kind of closed in order to reach an agreement. I think I think these negotiations are a lot tougher than maybe some of the other ones that we've seen in previous years. So it'll definitely be interesting to see if/when they come to an agreement on a deal. All right, before we head out,
Yeah.
you got a last point or you good?
Oh no. We
Okay, gotcha. Before all right,
okay. No. We move right on. Let's
all right.
let's
Before we head out, we got to do Super Bowl predictions. I was gonna say the Dolphins aren't in it, but they're actually gonna be very, very well represented. Well represented. I don't know if you saw the Dan Marino commercial with Messi, and then there was the Tua Paramount commercial. You didn't see that? You didn't see that?
Yeah. I saw. Yeah, I
So
saw it.
they're gonna be well
Well,
represented, during the
they,
commercials. But we have to wait another year to see if they're gonna be well represented in the game.
I
But
ain't been in the Super Bowl since I was a senior in high school. Don't talk about some commercials. Man, you
hey,
better get
it's baby
the
steps.
hell out of
Baby
here.
steps. Get to the divisional round in the commercial, maybe next year. Okay, I'm just messing. I'm just messing. But we do have 49ers Chiefs, a rematch of Super Bowl from a couple years back that was in Miami Gardens at Hard Rock. I mean, we'll just get right into it. Who you taking? We got 49ers, Chiefs. I think that the Chiefs have kind of against all odds, going on the road for the first time in their run, get some big wins. Mahomes is still Mahomes. The defense is lights out. And we have the 49ers who are back in it again, this time with Brock Purdy. But he's playing some really, really good ball. And obviously, they've got talent and stars all around. Do you think the 49ers get the revenge this time, or will the Chiefs make it 3 in 5 years?
I think the 49ers, I think they have theoretically have the better roster and a better team. And I I think Kansas City has there's something about their ability they've lived in these games for several years now, and they've gotten a bit they just have an ability. They have what winning teams have. They have the ability to be resilient. They are very well prepared. I don't think it's an accident. look at their high profile games. They tend to come out pretty well, and get things going early. I tend to want to still go with the best team and the team that's been looked like one of the best teams all season. And so I'm going to go with San Francisco. But yeah, again, this is I would take San Francisco. The Chiefs are what, a 3-point underdog.
2 points now.
I'd probably take San Francisco in the betting just because that's such a small spread. That's almost a pick 'em. That's a last second field goal you cover. But generally, if I were, this would be a game I'd again step back off betting. But yeah, take San Francisco. I don't know if it's going to be that high scoring. I'm going to go with 24-21, 24-20 in that area. But the thing is, if the Chiefs get a defensive touchdown, yeah, they gonna win that game because that's going to upset the balance, and that's going to keep them in the game. It's going to be like the last year when they got the defensive touchdown. You looked up at halftime, Phillies dominated the first half, and it's like this much difference. You're going, okay, we see how this is going to play out, and so, but yeah, I think they have the ability to do that. But yeah, I'll take San Francisco, but they ain't the most confident pick.
Yeah, I was thinking similar score, 23-20. With the Chiefs, you talk about the 49ers being the better team. I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. They have the bigger stars and more names, but collectively, I think you could definitely make an argument that the Chiefs are just as good, if not better, collectively. Like and I'm really leaning on the defense with this pick because I think that Kansas City's offense still leaves, something to be desired, even in the the championship game, go scoreless. That's a really good Baltimore defense, but they go scoreless in the second half. I think that there's still, some stuff there that they could fix, in the lead up to this game. But the defense is just playing like so lights out. Like, to do what they did against the Ravens offense in the championship game. They were, the second best, really like statistically the second best defense in the NFL in the regular season, but we didn't really talk about them a ton when it came down to the discussions about the best defenses. And I kind of trust that, again, like you talk about the Chiefs just being one of those teams that just kind of talked about last week. The Chiefs just being a team that like they just almost Patriot-like in terms of finding ways to win when things don't go right. I remember last year we were talking about making our predictions and we picked the Eagles because we're like, oh, the Eagles got their more talent, better team, more well-rounded, more ways to win. And then, obviously it was a close game, but the Chiefs just found a way to, eke it out. I just got that. I just get that sense. Mahomes isn't hurt this time around. They're figuring some things out on offense. I don't know. They're not like a juggernaut on offense, but I think that defense is what could really, spearhead them. Like I don't want to discount like how well that defense has been playing. I think that's going to be a great chess match with, Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator of the Chiefs, and then obviously Kyle Shanahan, the offensive or the play caller and head coach of the 49ers. But I'm gonna take the Chiefs, 23-20. If anything, the NFL feels like, they're just going to add to the conspiracy theories with Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I'm not going against that machine. I'm taking Chiefs 23-20.
I love the conspiracy theory, yeah.
I'm not going too into the weeds on that, but
yeah, that's just that. So you hear that and like, really, people. My favorite was, she was gonna like announce support for Biden. I'm like, from the NFL, the league that where an owner once said, this is obviously a long time ago, we're 28 or the owners are 28 we're 28 Republicans who vote socialist. I mean, on league matters, this is like, no, this is anyway. I think also the one thing the Chiefs definitely have going for them that the Niners don't is, if you look at the two Super Bowls they won, there was that play late in the game when didn't seem hopeless, but it was a big play. When they just needed it, they came up with it. And the first one against the Niners, it was the big 40-something yard pass to Tyreek Hill on third and forever. And then the last year it was Mahomes looking like Fred Sanford running down the street, running for 20-something yards. And and you just knew, you're like, okay. I felt it, and I always think whenever I feel something like that, how much more intensely do the players on the field sometimes feel this? And you just think, okay, we know how this is going to come out. There's that sense of, okay, somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to make the plays. Offensively, it's probably going to be Patrick Mahomes, but somebody's going to do it, and they're going to make that play, that big play that picks everything up and gets the doubt going in the other team's mind, and and gets things going their way. I think they have a comfort that that's going to happen for them. And if the game's close, that being able to play with that in your head is something of an advantage.
Yeah, like I said before, just kind of a Patriot-like way of just making the plays when the plays need to be made, right? At the right time. Definitely a fun matchup. Maybe not a switch up. I mean, we obviously saw these teams a couple years ago. The Chiefs, back-to-back Super Bowls now. The 49ers have been kind of in the mix, couple straight NFC Championship appearances. Now they break down the door. It's going to be a very fun matchup out in Vegas. Very excited to watch that. And we'll see who comes up on top. You're taking 49ers. Reluctantly, I'm taking the Chiefs a little more confidently. So we'll see. We'll see what happens this Sunday as the 2023 NFL season comes to an end. All right, that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you guys as always for tuning in. Reminder to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, share, comment, as well as subscribe to the Miami Herald. We'll see when Anthony Weaver is introduced as the new Dolphins defensive coordinator. If it's this week, we'll definitely have updates. So definitely stay locked to the Miami Herald website for that, as well as our other coverage. We'll be back soon to recap some more Dolphins football. But until then, you guys.
Or just any football. We're talking through the offseason.
Dolphins in depth, so Dolphins football. But until then, you guys take care. See ya.